Are you suffering from tinnitus? By fighting it less and learning more about it, we can reduce its annoyance. It's not just about the sound, it's about how your brain responds to it. For example, two persons may have the same tinnitus loudness, but what's tolerable for one may be excruciating for another. Here's where mindfulness comes and can be helpful. But what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the psychological process of bringing one's attention to experiences occurring in the present moment. It isn't about emptying your mind or forcing the noise to stop. Instead, it's like becoming a neutral observer of your own senses. Think of it as a bridge. One side is the noise you hear, and on the other side, there's how you react to it. There is a dual effect for mindfulness in tinnitus. The first effect is non-judgment, which handles your emotional reaction, while the second effect is brain training or threat reevaluation, which handles your neurological attention. Together, these two leads to a situation where the tinnitus sound is no longer a problem to be solved, but rather a background of your life that no longer causes any distress. And now let's take a look at each effect of mindfulness. The first effect or emotional calm leads to a non-judgmental or neutral observation. When someone first developed tinnitus, they don't just hear a sound, they evaluate it and they label it as terrible, unbearable, ruinous, or awful sound. This judgment triggers your limbic system, which is the emotional center of the brain. And triggering limbic system in tinnitus leads to anxiety, anger, and despair. But how mindfulness works for the first effect? By practicing non-judgmental observation, you learn to strip away the emotional labels. For example, instead of saying this sound is ruining my life, you practice saying there is a high-pitched sensation present right now. And the result is that you decouple the sound from the emotional suffering. And the sound remains, but the anguish begins to dissolve. This stops the vicious cycles where anxiety makes the tinnitus loudness feel louder, and the loudness makes the anxiety worse. The second part of mindfulness is brain training, which leads to threat reevaluation. Your brain hardwired to pay attention to anything it perceives as a threat. For example, if you hear a smoke alarm, you can't ignore it because your brain labels it as a danger. And unfortunately, the brain often mistakenly labels tinnitus as a danger signal because it's a new, unexplained, and persistent sound. So this part of mindfulness involves cognitive awareness. You must increase your understanding of the causes and mechanisms of tinnitus, and knowing that tinnitus is simply a neural noise or a phantom signal and not a sign of physical disease or impending deafness. Through mindfulness, you consciously remind the brain the tinnitus sound is a neutral, meaningless signal. I'm safe. And when the brain receives consistent feedback that the sound isn't a threat, it naturally begins the process of habituation. This is the brain's ability to filter out the repetitive, non-threatening stimuli, like the feeling of clots on your skin or the sound of a computer fan. The result of mindfulness in tinnitus is the ignore effect. Once your brain convinced that the sound is irrelevant, it stops focusing on it. The tinnitus doesn't necessarily disappear, but the brain stops bringing it into your conscious awareness. You ignore it automatically, just as you ignore the tip of your nose, even though it's always in your field of vision. So mindfulness helps you stand on that bridge and watch the sound without panic, fear, or frustration. Now I want us to move from the theory of mindfulness into a direct experience. If you struggle with tinnitus, I invite you to try a practice I call the sound scientist. Let's do this together. Just for the next few minutes, give yourself permission to stop fighting the sound. Now close your eyes or simply soften your gaze. Take a deep breath, and as you exhale, notice the sound of the tinnitus. Right now, your mind might be judging it. You might be thinking, I wish this would stop, or it's too loud today. That's okay, but for this exercise, I want you to replace those judgments with neutral facts. Instead of saying, this is annoying, simply say to yourself, there is a sound present. Instead of, I hate this, simply observe, I'm noticing a high-pitched frequency. Now I want you to become a scientist. Imagine you are hearing this sound for the first time in your life. Start to describe it without using the words good or bad. Ask yourself, what is the texture of the sound? Is it sharp like a needle, smooth like a flute, or grainy like static? Where is it located? Does it stay in one place or does it seem to move? If this sound had a color, what color would it be? Finally, keep hearing the tinnitus, but now notice the sound of your breath. Notice the furthest sound you can hear in the room. Maybe a clock ticking or the wind outside. Notice how the tinnitus is no longer the only thing in your world. It's simply one sound among many. It's a guest in your awareness, but it's not the master of it. Now gently open your eyes. Remember, the goal isn't to make the sound vanish. It's to make the suffering vanish. Be gentle with yourself.